Hello friends, my name is Carlos Rios and I am the founder of Pixels to Music. I'm here to help you become a successful, highly skilled, and knowledgeable video game composer. So today I want to talk to you about one of the video game composers that originally inspired me to become a composer and pursue a career in music. His name is Nobuo Uematsu. So at the end of the video, I will share with you a free VST instrument that I used to create music in the style of Final Fantasy VII, so make sure you stick around until the end. But Nobuo Uematsu is the first video game composer that I became familiar with and recognized by name. I remember distinctly being moved by the music of Final Fantasy VII, and I still get shivers when I hear the opening sequence showing the city of Midgar. Now, the graphics of this game might not have aged super well, but as a child, when I first saw this 3D opening sequence, it was like this witnessing into the portal into a vast, distant world offering so much fun and adventure. Seeing that game, to me, it was like an invitation to be a hero, to explore a new world and confront evil. Some of these elements you could see in other video games, but it was this whole new way of perceiving, a video game, especially with the whole 3D world. It just looked so big then, which, I know nowadays it's not that big, but it felt crazy. Video games just didn't feel that way back then. The music of that opening sequence and showing the city of Midgar, it's mournful, it's bleak, and it blends perfectly with the video game's art, and together they paint this brilliant atmosphere of a dystopian future that needs redemption. It was so cool seeing this as a child, and it is so fun reflecting on it now as an adult. Without a doubt, the music of Nobuo Uematsu has been extremely influential in my life as a composer, as if it's not obvious yet. As a child listening to this music, I did not think it might be possible for me to write music for video games and provide experiences for people similar to the one that I experienced as a child. I simply saw myself as a person in love with music. And Uematsu's music gave me direction early on and motivated me to pursue music as a form of artistic expression. I hope that in sharing this quick video with you, you will feel similarly inspired by this OG of video game music. Nobuo Uematsu. He's a Japanese composer and he's a self-taught musician. He was 10 or so when he began playing the piano. He studied English as a university student and he played in several amateur bands, right? Not a super crazy advantage at the beginning of his life as a musician, I think a lot of us can relate to that. He used to work at a musical rental shop when an employee from Square Enix, then it was just Square, approached him and with an invitation to write music for some of the titles they were working on. It's like, hey man, you want to work on some video game stuff? And it's like, sure, I'll do it as a side gig. Square back then wasn't huge at all. Square Enix wasn't huge at all, and I think in some ways it really wasn't doing too well. And I remember hearing somewhere that the inspiration behind the title Final Fantasy had something to do with them believing that this was just gonna be their final attempt at making an RPG. And well, we all know how that ended, right? So at first, Uematsu only considered this to be a side job, like I said before. And I really do believe that this is where many video game composers currently find themselves. This is certainly where I find myself, and it's totally okay and normal to have a humble beginning. And many of the great creative minds and businesses in our culture started this way. Most of Uematsu's earliest accomplishments happened while working as a composer for Square. Most notably, as I said before, is his work for the Final Fantasy series, but he also worked on titles like Chrono Trigger in collaboration with another greatly influential composer, another OG, Yasunori Matsuda. After leaving Square in 2004, Nobuo Uematsu created his own production company called Smile Please. In 2008, he composed the main theme for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And the next year, in 2009, he wrote the music for the anime Guin Saga. His Aerith theme from the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack became the first piece of video game music to appear in the classic FM Hall of Fame in the UK. And most recently, Uematsu came back to compose the main theme for the Final Fantasy VII remake. which I still haven't played. Okay, One-Winged Angel. This is the theme for Sephiroth, the terrible villain from Final Fantasy VII. The music has an opening that's reminiscent of Igor Stravinsky, Rite of Spring, especially the section of the Augurs of Spring with the young girls dancing. Uematsu talks about his process for creating this particular piece in an interview he did with Polygon. And I'll go ahead and put a link to the video in the description in case you want to check it out. It's pretty cool. He basically wrote a few disjunct ideas day by day that thought were cool and evoked the emotions that he wanted Sephiroth to evoke. And he then pieced those disjunct ideas together and put them in different orders. And eventually he ended up with Sephiroth's theme, which I think is a super interesting way of approaching music composition. Hey, so before I talk to you about the Final Fantasy VII Prelude, if you're enjoying the content so far, please make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and tell all your friends about the channel. I'll try my best to make it worth your while by continuing to produce free, quality educational content for new and veteran video game composers. Final Fantasy Prelude. This is a prelude you usually hear at the beginning of a Final Fantasy game. Sometimes it is played by a harp, and other times by a piano, or sometimes some kind of plucky synth. This famous prelude starts with a simple 5-octave arpeggio, playing a pleasant chord progression, right? Nothing crazy. And this is later joined by a melody and an additional accompaniment. And since I'm talking so much about Final Fantasy VII, let's just go ahead and listen to the prelude from that game. Okay, so I referred earlier to this, the Midgar opening sequence. You can hear a lot of industrial sounds and percussion that work towards creating the sonic landscape of the game. And as the camera zooms out to show a wider shot of the city of Midgar, right? We hear the music increase in volume and transition into the main theme of the game. This is that moment that I was talking about that just gave me goosebumps. That was like, yes, I want to play this game. And then soon after the sequence goes on, we just jump straight into the action and begin the bombing mission, which is pretty cool. Hey, thank you so much for sticking around so far. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about that free VST, that instrument that I used to make music in the style of Final Fantasy VII. But before I do that, let me tell you about a strategy guide that I put together to help you come up with your own unique chord progressions. As composers, we have limited harmonic languages. We tend to go to the same chord progressions and use the same tricks when we create music. And this is normal because we're human. But I get tired of that. So I created this guide for myself to use as reference whenever I'm not feeling inspired or if I'm trying to break the mold. This free guide contains 4 of my favorite strategies for generating new and unique chord progressions that just sound good. I have included a link in the description in case you want to get it. Okay, so here's a small bit of a track that I made in the style of Final Fantasy VII. It is actually now available on Spotify and all your favorite listening platforms, so go check it out. Beyond trying to somewhat imitate the sound of the Final Fantasy VII game, I used the pixel art of this artist, Luis Zuno, and I'll include a link in the description to his Instagram in case you want to check out more of his artwork. It's pretty awesome. But the main instrument that I used to create all of these sounds is the free VST Nils Kawai K1V. Kind of a mouthful to say. We just call it a K1V or Nils K1V, that should work. So it has a few hundred presets already built in, and it has the ability to customize. It gives you the ability to customize and design your own sounds, which is always really useful. It is a super cool free instrument, and I'm planning on making a full review video about it. And if you're interested, I can probably put a tutorial together on how to use it as well. But for now, here are a few samples of the presets included. Again, I'll include a link to the developer's website in the description in case you want to check it out. Thank you again for sticking around until the end. I hope you're getting lots of value from these videos, and that is all I have today. So see you next time.